Okay, are we live now? That was both frustrating and embarrassing. Okay, I do apologize. That was a bit frustrating, but I am back. Let's see. It says we're building up. I believe the question was how I see things coming together in the future. And what I see in the future is more consolidation of messages and better leveraging and optimization on channels. Um, basically, uh, the reduction of digital teams that are supposed to be the experts in those channels, and just more digital affluence across the channels and across the areas of the business. More savvy folks that are more active using more modern channels and sharing a cohesive message with stages across those messages. So basically, sorry, distracted as folks join. Okay, so yes, I think the proliferation of content marketing, I know it sounds cliche, is definitely the future of marketing as we know it. I think there'll be less and less folks buying media and more people producing media, still buying placements, but production being done in-house instead of outside, and or at least less large production done and lots of more smaller productions done for for brands, and producing content in-house, as mentioned, to be just more authentic, to be more real and more genuine, talk more contextually around their products and their customers and what their interests are. I think that the future of marketing will be very much like the foundation from many years ago, but very different from the last decade or so, where many big brands are using a lot of sizzle to get folks' attention, a lot of interesting presentation to get folks' attention, versus actually focusing on the product. Having a lot of exposure to the hospitality space, there are lots of folks and lots of brands in the space that spend a lot of time packaging advertising and packaging amenities in a way that look attractive, but then when you go to consume the product, it's not quite the way it was presented, and the service is definitely not up to par. The service does not live up to the brand's promise. Caesars, for example, is a company that very much respects and appreciates the loyalty that we get from our guests, and that folks choose to stay with us and interact with us. And because of that, we're very conscious of the service level. We recognize that we don't sell a product or a service; we sell an experience. And with that philosophy in mind, we try to do our best to greet folks and make them feel welcome. And if we do know something about the folks, or we can learn more about those folks, we want to try to leverage that to create a better, more holistic experience for our customers, for our guests, so they have a good time. How has your work helped Caesars Entertainment have a great year? It's funny, we have had a really good year. It goes back to what I've been talking about for a bit now, and what I talk about on stage pretty often, which is I do my best to enable our properties around the world, especially in Las Vegas, our biggest footprint, to really leverage the great experiences folks have. We keep going back to the word content, and I'm sure it'll be a theme here, as you hear all the time. But we're a group that doesn't have to spend that much to create great content. It's already there. There's guests having a great time and sharing that, which we greatly appreciate. And there's also the amazing artists and celebrities, celebrity chefs, etc., that just create great things, whether it's dishes or excitement or experiences that we're able to share. So the hard part of creating content for many companies, Red Bull sending people to the moon, for example, we're lucky we don't have as much an effort to create it. Our job is to harness it, and my job for the most part has been to help do that, and then best leverage the channels to communicate it, especially from the e-commerce standpoint. We really want folks to book their reservations, their trips with us. We want them to come to our websites, our mobile apps, etc., register with us, and tell us a bit about themselves so that we can take that data that we're collecting and offer the best experience possible, the best packages, the best amenities possible, so that folks really have a good time. We have a belief that, yes, there are lots of bargain shoppers. Yes, there are lots of folks who want to get into the show as inexpensively as possible, or even stay at a hotel or property as cheap as possible. But that's not really what we think is key. What we think is key is that folks want to come and take a trip, and they really want to have an experience that they're going to remember, something special, something to feel some excitement about, maybe even some pride, and go back home and tell their friends about it and their family about it. And that illustrates why folks should come and stay at one of our properties and experience what we offer, just something unique, something special. What tech do you feel had the biggest impact on your profession? What do you feel will have the biggest impact in the future? It's a fantastic question. I would say in most recent years, there's been this explosion of wearables, and environmental products, right? Whether that be obviously the phone, but there's also things like digital kiosks and digital signage that you can interact with, and properties that have been around a long time, destinations that have been around a long time, had to quickly adopt these things and figure out how to kind of shoehorn them into the experience. I think that's been somewhat cumbersome for many of us to figure out how to get the phone and digital signage, etc., to interact with the guest in a meaningful way. And I think that's going to continue. I think as watches and bands and belt buckles and things evolve, figuring out a way to incorporate that into the experience will be key. At least that's my prediction. What do you see as the future of engagement, marketing across social, paid, earned, or owned, digital? It's what I was saying earlier. I think brands are used to having something they want to say, something they want to sell. There's a product, there's a tagline or a sales pitch, and for many, many years, think back to the Don Draper days, agencies would help tell that story or tell that pitch in a creative way, but it's always been speaking in one direction to the customer. I think what's happened the last few years aggressively is we realize that the customer now has a voice in real time, especially through social media. Click to chat in other ways. You can hear back from a guest. Ratings and reviews, by the way, is huge too. You can hear back of what a customer is experiencing, what they're feeling in real time. And we've just been so conscious of that we've been trying to please the customer by throwing whatever they respond to as much out there as possible, meaning we're an organization that has such great talent like Mariah Carey, Britney Spears, etc. So we do our best to capture these great moments and share them. But I think something we have experienced, and many, many brands of our size have experienced, is get to a point where you're putting out so much interesting content because you want the customers to be so happy that you forget that there is a business purpose. There is time and effort applied to all that collection and production of the things you're sharing. And if there's no bottom line driving to some kind of action, then it might be a miss. We try to be conscious of everything we do, driving to hopefully excite somebody to inspire them to consider staying with us or just interacting with us and hearing more about what we have going on and how that might be interesting to them. And it's a different detail there, right? Speaking about what's going on is one thing, but speaking about how they can consume or be part of what's going on, that's the hook. That's the thing we've focused on. And I think that's the future of successful digital campaigns across big brands, is finding a way to leverage what folks want to see and hear and what you want to tell them, want them to do, and do that in a not a jarring way, in somewhat of a graceful way. Thank you for your time and how much marketing spend. How much of your marketing spend? You know, it's interesting. It's an interesting question. How much of our marketing investment has gone to media and tools versus, or rather, media tools and platforms versus actually buying media and advertising? That's what I take away from that. And it's been an interesting and drastic change over the years as well. It used to be that folks would just spend tons of money on advertising. Now I often ask, how many companies actually have a head of advertising? How many of you all out there have a VP of advertising in your organization? I don't. We have what most do today, which is a head of brand marketing, and a studio that creates creative. Media has really taken on a different form, and it's very targeted, I would say, these days. So to target, you have to have some great media. You have to try to produce things that would compel customers to act. Sure, but that's once you have that, once you've produced campaigns and creative media to support those campaigns, the big investment that I'm seeing the last decade, definitely the last 5 years, substantially, is the marketing platform. I feel like there's a few marketing clouds out there. I think Adobe and Salesforce call it a cloud. There's a lot of marketing platforms, right? It seems like everyone from Oracle, IBM, Salesforce to, I go on and on, right? They've all made all these acquisitions and have put a lot of effort towards creating a platform. I like to call it one throat to choke, one partner that does it all. And of course, no one does it all really well. But I do believe that the share of investment is going more and more to platform work, automation, targeting, and more tools than it is to actual media. I feel like it's getting close to a place where it's almost I don't know, 60-40 split of media to tools, where I think it was much different in the past. So where is the future of digital marketing going in 2017, and how are businesses changing the way they capitalize on that new tech in this field? Well, I think it's twofold. I think there are the progressive companies that like to be pioneers, the Nikes and Starbucks of the world, that Marriott in my space, for example, or Virgin, JetBlue. These are the folks that will have watch apps and have multiple mobile apps, and be the first to be on wearables and in cars and the more progressive channels. And I think those folks do this to be pioneers and set a stage and just communicate that their brand is progressive, even though those things might not be profitable early on. I think that's going to continue. I think you'll have lots of, or not so many, but lots of investment, I'd say, from not as large a pool of brands doing progressive things and trying to stay interesting, whereas you'll have a whole lot more fast followers. I guess traditionally we always have, but I feel like we'll have more and more. A lot of folks are turning to Facebook the last few years because of custom audiences and some of these other programs that are out there that are really successful. But I feel like early on when Facebook first started making waves, folks were really thoughtful about investing on Facebook or a social media platform for targeted advertising. But targeted advertising works, and we're seeing it work more and more. And I think that's really what the big investment will be, for the next couple of years. It'll be toying with devices, but it'll be really these platforms that reach people in ways that are less salesy and less aggressive. So that is platforms like Facebook. That's places where folks go to learn something or engage with something, whether it's a recipe or a how to change a part on a car. I think it's that kind of content on the major platforms that will be the real lion's share of investment and success in the next few years. One piece of advice that I would give to a startup or entrepreneur that's starting out in the industry. That's a good one. I have this kind of conversation all the time. What I find is I get reached out to very often by younger companies or newer companies, and they're usually selling me a product, and most often it's a product I don't need, or at least it's positioned the wrong way. I had a conversation this week, literally, about a company reaching out, trying to sell me a product and show me how it works and give me an example of how I might use it. And I don't think it's an exaggeration to say by the end of the conversation, I was telling this product producer that it's actually an interesting product, but not in the way they're selling it, at least not to me. And I do think I can represent a fair amount of Fortune 1000s when it comes to marketing and strategy. So I would say know your audience. You have a lot of young folks or entrepreneurial folks that go out there and build something that they think might be useful. But if you're an agency guy, you should definitely have a guy or gal on your team that's worked for big brands, and vice versa. You're a startup independent person or a hustler from early on, that's fantastic. But make sure you have people around you on your board, on your team, whatever, that have exposure to the other side, whatever your side is. Otherwise, you're just going to work off of conjecture and theory, and I see that happen all the time. Folks just growing too quickly, or at least growing their investments and support so quickly and not really knowing what their product can actually do. So know your audience. Next we had, how inclined is Caesar's interest in working with or acquiring startups, developing marketing solutions? Fantastic question. You see this incredible emergence of not just technology companies, B2B companies, acquiring other technology and B2B companies, but you see lots of big brands, some older brands, Fortune 1000s, I mentioned Fortune 500s, that are acquiring technology companies because they have these tools that they've been leveraging for so long, they find it efficient enough to do it themselves. And I think it's really, really interesting. Like, I don't feel like, my dad and my grandfather saw that as much. I don't think the factories and small businesses that they worked in would ever have thought to acquire the POS supplier and the type of companies that they used to support them back then. So it's really interesting how the dynamic has changed. When it comes to Caesars, we are a company that really does enjoys our partnerships. I take pride in the fact that we are thoughtful about the businesses we want to be in and the businesses we don't. Perfect example would be partners that produce or provide services that help us folks consume our experience. That was long-winded. What I'm saying here is, for example, ticketing. There are plenty of ticketing vendors out there in the world. The Ticketmaster is definitely a large provider of consumption of tickets and shows, but there are other much smaller folks that we've worked with on individual basis, etc. We have at times looked at would it be more efficient or effective to go ahead and acquire these kind of companies, but I think we've found that we rather just have those strong partnerships and be an enabler, be supportive for those folks to continue really mastering that ticketing space versus them just being focused on us and not getting exposure to other businesses that leverage these kind of tools, because then it becomes a little bit of tunnel vision of how we'd best use it and not enough exposure to other businesses. And that's something I really enjoy about Caesars, is that we really do look around way beyond gaming and just concerts, but nightlife and F&B and spa type amenities, the pool. We have zip lines. We have such great amenities. We really do look around at other industries, parallel industries, to see what folks are doing to stay innovative and interesting, and to see what we can incorporate. And we usually do that with partners. I wouldn't say we do as much acquisition of these partners. What are the key digital tools that B2B companies should use? That's a bit of a loaded question. You have a great example. A buddy of mine works for a really great startup. It's been a few years now, and they're doing pretty well. And he was asking us about our experience with Salesforce. Now, my answer to him was, we have a very convoluted platform where we've been around 80 years, and we've evolved a lot of our tools over time. And then we've grown through acquisition, not so much of the partners and providers, as I mentioned a moment ago, more other properties that do what we do, that provide entertainment. And in those acquisitions, we tend to gain a whole lot of different or unique instances of software and technology, and we have to find a way to stitch that together. So for us, we found a lot of value in working with partners like Salesforce, for example, and IBM, for example. Those are bigger players. They do require some substantial investment, but a company of our size, $9 billion company, sometimes you need a power player to come in and really help stitch those stories together, those tools together. Whereas my buddy I mentioned working for this pretty great startup, they've made some real progress and down their path. I introduced them to my partners at Salesforce, and they did not find them to be the right partner for them. They thought they were just a little bit too big or ready to support companies that were just much bigger. They found Marketo to be a much better partner, and others that they looked at, for example. So I would say that it's kind of a tough question. It really is all relative. Ultimately, there are some partners that I enjoy that I think are completely versatile. Brandify is a really cool product. Helps you get a sense of where your brand and product stands. And no one's paying me to plug anything here, but here's something that's really cool, right? I could talk about other products, and happy you could reach out to me directly, and I could tell you about other things I was really impressed with. An example that just popped in my head. And you got agency-type partners. Mighty Hive is a group we work with, and Be Found Online, and Drex Agency, Trigger Agency. There's a number of folks we work with that are just smaller and leaner, that are just absolutely outstanding, and they meet the needs of us, even being a larger company. So, I guess it's all relative, but for me, there are some pillars that you really want to make sure you capture. Let's see here. What element of technology used within Caesars excites me the most? That's fun. I would have to say, it's on the tip of my tongue to say programmatic, but I know that means different things to different people, and we're not nearly as deep in that as we'd like to be. Very few folks actually are, by the way. We have Hadoop environments. We have data. We're a data company, so we do our best to leverage data. I would say this. I would say the easiest way to justify my existence and my team's existence is to show the strong conversion rate and considerable amount of revenue that we drive through our direct channel. I propose that we have one of the higher conversion rates in our industry, travel and entertainment, and one way we were able to do that is to be able to test quickly, and we've used some testing tools and testing methodology that's worked really well. We've worked with Adobe and Test to Target. We work with Maximizer, and now Oracle, I believe, and plenty of other smaller shops. And we use tools like Omniture and Google Analytics, sure, and Tea Leaf, which is fantastic. I think that was acquired by IBM. But the consolidation of these tools and the approach we take to leveraging the insights we learn very rapidly, very quickly. I mean, we have 10 tests going at any given time, and we're constantly turning things on and turning things off, and have a great queue that rolls out. So I would say our approach to leveraging technology to test quickly has been definitely my basis for success the last 5 years or so at Caesars. Excuse me. As I mentioned earlier, I got in at about 3 a.m. from New York last night, and it's after 11 now, so my recall might not be as sharp as I would like it to be. But yeah, going back to some of the points we're talking about here, I have to say, Caesars is an interesting company, right? We have some great concerts, we have some great amenities, some great food and beverage partners, some celebrity chefs. We have rooms where people can consume products. We have outdoor experiences that don't have any gaming at all. The beautiful wheel, the high roller there on the Strip, and the Link Promenade, and just tons of amenities. And our business really does cross lots and lots of different verticals and categories. I would just say that we have done a lot of things on our own. And I'd say early on we might have tried to do a lot more on our own. One thing I do advocate is including and incorporating partners, testing things as much as possible, whether that's having a kind of elite team that's somewhat isolated from the business that can kind of come in and do quick hit type of testing. You're running, and I mean identifying problems and doing that kind of testing. An example would be from our world. In some cases, we have some longer checkout lines at our properties. We're excited that so many folks want to come see us. At times, it's hard to predict when we're going to be busier than others. And we've made incredible strides on automating that check-in process and reducing those wait times. That took us literally dedicating, allocating some very small group of very sharp people to look at the problem and identify opportunities around the problem and explore solutions to the problem. And it took a little time, not a ton, but a bit of time, but we really came up with some good solutions for waiting lists, whether that's check-ins or even getting into restaurants. So, for me, I would say having folks that are either small groups that are not just continuous improvement, but actually potentially a SWAT team of problem solvers can be interesting, depending on the company culture, or having just one or two folks intentionally always having some extra bandwidth to do some thinking. I feel like a lot of us get into that place of, we're doing so much execution that we don't do enough thinking. I got to say, the best strategy I've learned throughout my career, and this really came from the agency side of the business, spent a long time in the agency world. It really was the philosophy of when you have teams that are doing both operational and strategic. Operational usually kind of takes over the energy, takes the lion's share of the effort, and then what you're left with is less strategy, and you get into a place of kind of least imperfect and kind of fixing your way to success, almost failing your way to success, when you have less time to strategize and really think about opportunity because you're so focused on business. If you could just find a little bit of extra time for folks to just have some war room meetings and just do a little research and talk, just talk and brainstorm, you'll find tons of opportunity within a business. You'd be surprised how many businesses I've worked with that just can't seem to find it. Everyone is just 100% at their max bandwidth to accomplish what they have on their plate. They don't really have time to make things interesting or fun. What do we have here? With all the data you handle, what is the best practice you use to tackle any challenges with cybersecurity? Unfortunately, I'm really not the guy to answer that. What I can say is, it goes without saying, Caesars is a very, very considerate company. It's a nice way of putting it. If there's even a remote question around, would this make folks raise an eyebrow? Would this have any of our regulators concerned at all? We don't go near it. We're lucky that we're able to say that. We have enough business inputs to help keep us afloat that we might pass on opportunities that might seem obvious. So, it might be a little bit, arrogant or cocky to say. I apologize. But, yeah, if there's anything even remotely dangerous, we avoid it. And when it comes to releasing new technology or doing experimental stuff, we're just very, very thoughtful and very, very thorough. We might be slower to release certain things at times because we really do care about our guests feeling secure and safe. That's just the kind of business we're in. Other than that, I can't be much more specific or tactical. Sorry about that. I'm probably not the right guy for that. How is digital shaping shoppers' decision? Fantastic question. I believe Google gave the number to us recently, but what we're experiencing that's been incredibly impactful the last 2.5 years, I'd say is when it exploded on us, is these ratings and reviews. The TripAdvisors of the world, Google, even Expedia, they all have these opportunities to, Yelp, another big one, to leave feedback on your experience and your service and your product, etc. And that's not something that you can control. Right? You can control your messaging on social media. You can respond to what people are saying, and in some cases you could even delete what someone said if it's too aggressive. On those channels, you have no control. All you can do is, try to engage or resolve, but folks are able to be very, very transparent, and you can't pull things down. You have to address them or ignore them. So I would say, the fact that if that number is true, and I know it's close, even if it's not exactly 70, but it's near 70% of folks that are actually going to some kind of rating review site to evaluate if your product is what they want to consume, you really have to be present on those channels, and you really have to be thoughtful about, how things show up there and what opportunities show up there too. It's not just the things that you can solve because people are complaining they had an incident and you have an opportunity to address it and resolve it potentially. But we've also found opportunities where, a guest would mention how they might not purchase a product because it's too large of a pack or too big of a amount for them. But if we just made smaller versions or provided less gate to entry, so less items or whatever it is, you can find opportunities to sell a product that normally you wouldn't be able to sell because you were just selling in too big of a quantity. I'm just saying that there are opportunities if you listen, and I think that's a big opportunity for companies to just pay attention to what folks are saying, really listen, and recognize that the channels will dictate how folks interact with you. Mobile is crazy. Everyone's saying think mobile first. Our conversion rate is much higher on desktop, and we still have a bit more customers on desktop than we do on mobile. Obviously, we're thinking about mobile. Obviously, it's growing by leaps and bounds, but there's still a lot of customers there. So, do we think mobile first? Yeah, you'd probably say we do, but it doesn't mean you should only think mobile. You should, a close second, or at the same time be thinking about other channels and how they change. So, I think basically accessibility and speed is really the most prominent attributes of digital that's shaping buyers' decisions. Okay, we got here. Greg, if you could narrow it down to the top 5 things we need to know about digital marketing, what would they be? That's interesting. 1, listen to your customers. Now, you might be selling a product that's new or new version of something that you already sell. So you might not have much opportunity to hear what your customers are saying about that product because you're just launching it. But there's got to be something like it out there, or at least relatively comparable, that you can leverage. Really, just think through, how can I possibly learn more? I mean, there are focus groups and marketing insights that you can gain and interviews you can gain. And I'm not saying I don't believe in that, but I'm just saying I don't think it's ever as rich or valuable as that direct quotes from customers' mouths like you get on TripAdvisor, for example. So that one is really just recognizing customers have a voice now. You should really listen to it, and it'll help dictate your path on selling your product. 2, don't feel the obligation to be present everywhere. There are social channels that we are not active on. In some cases, some of our brands are very active at all. That's because that's what's practical for our business. If you're a company that produces, let's say, pharmaceuticals, maybe, I don't know off the top of my head, or financial, there may not be a whole lot of value for you to be on Pinterest or Instagram, for that matter, or Snapchat. But it might be great for you to be there on Facebook, where folks might actually have questions and be looking for answers or support or examples or case studies. So just be thoughtful about your channels, because in my opinion, it's better to not be present in some channels than to be there and be completely inappropriate and look desperate. Because I think younger folks today, they smell it on you. They smell the desperation, and you lose credibility really quick. You see brands just start losing interest and start to fail really quick when the younger folks especially smell BS on you. 3 things you need to know about digital marketing. That yes, there are great tools out there. There are great programmatic and dynamic creative and marketing automation, all these things that can make you more efficient and even more accurate in some cases. But don't just dive into everything. Again, just like the last point, not everything applies to everybody. In my opinion, the best thing you can do is do some things manually for a while just to get into business, do pilots, see if partners help prove up the value of something. We worked with a partner recently that I won't name, but they're fantastic. Well, I can even name them because it's fine. I think they're a fantastic solution provider. They're called Bloomreach. They dynamically create pages for your products based on what the demand is. Fantastic solution, no brainer. We looked at them as a solution. Frankly, we don't have enough SKUs. We don't have enough variation on products that it would work for us. So we didn't go too far down the path of a pilot. Them being a company with a lot of integrity and us, appreciating that, we didn't take the time to pursue the product very far. We just saw it wasn't a fit. So ultimately, I would say, that point is explore products, explore solutions, do pilots, but don't just jump into something big because you see others doing it or you hear things about it. You really should test. It's funny, I'm a creative guy, and now after 5 years at Caesars, I've really been bred to say test. I guess I'll try to give you 2 more because you asked for 5. What other advice would I give? Be patient. I know that's hard. You have teams and mouths to feed, but very few of the big popular companies are what they started out to be, right? We could joke about Facebook and Twitter and plenty of others that had a goal to be a solution for one thing and turned out to be something else. So I would say, being patient, but I heard an expression really, really great the other day. It was, I'm sorry, I'm at a loss for words. It was something like be aggressively patient. I forget the exact phrase, but it's be patient with your actual actions, but don't be patient with your desires. So go ahead and test lots of things. Just be patient in the execution of it. Go ahead and be open-minded and consume and have ideas. Just make sure you give things enough time to bake. Hopefully that makes sense. And the last point, let's see, advice, digital. I guess I talked about partners. I think, partners can help prove up things, and doing things manually at times can help prove up the value of, wow, if I can do this faster, it would be better, it would be more efficient. But, is it going to work overall? I could do it manually for a while to validate that. The other thing I would say is this has been this big movement of the reduction of agency partners. I'm watching lots and lots of big companies try to bring in their own in-house creative folks and not work with agencies. I think a lot of that is because every graffiti artist and every young kid riding skateboards in the 90s became a graphic designer, and now agencies are everywhere, and it's really hard to decipher who's good and who's just full of artsy guys with nose rings that are super talented. And because of that, I think that it's just diluted the value of agencies. The emergence of boutique and digital agencies, it's hard to tell apart who's good and who's not. I would say that I do believe that the good partners, good informed partners, strong agencies can bring a ton of value. I know it's expensive, but that's a great Leonardo DiCaprio meme we see all over LinkedIn all the time. It's and if you think hiring an expert is expensive, try hiring an amateur. I think it's really profound. Ultimately, finding the right partner is not always easy. Going through a rigorous RFP process can suck. Do the best you can to leverage friends and partners, networks from other companies, and hear who partner that they've been excited about. But don't be afraid to work with agencies. I know it seems like a big investment, but trying to figure out things on your own can cost you a lot more later. So there's my top 5. I hope that was at least relatively coherent for you. Looks like we have a few minutes left. I don't see any more questions in the queue. Just think about anything else that I might want to share. Look, I would say this goes without saying, right? There's some fundamental things that I feel like it's really gotten away from businesses for some time now. No matter what technology exists out there, no matter what social channels emerge, no matter how interesting or exciting buzz might be about a product or a tool or platform, just remember that is not the end of the day. That's not the thing that's going to make or break your business. Being there or not being there is not going to make or break your business. What's going to make or break your business is attention to the product and attention to your customer. If you are not attentive and you don't evolve your product, you don't improve it, you don't support it well enough, you don't listen to your customers, you are not going to get anywhere. And no mobile app or fantastic ad is going to save you if the service isn't there and the product isn't strong. So always put the product first. That's a very important detail, and that's something I feel like I'm saying all the time because folks are just constantly looking for that angle to amplify some kind of message, whether leaning on technology or great advertising to evolve the company. But I really think it goes back to the product. Here's another question here. Is there anything you're particularly excited about visiting and taking part in GitX in 2016? I mean, I feel like that goes without saying. For me, I do a lot of speaking, I go to a lot of conferences, and the huge benefit I get out of all of them, way more than any other, is really validation. More often than not, way more often than not, I go to these big conferences and I speak to other peers, companies the size of mine or similar to mine, and I hear the problems they're going through or the solutions that they found, and so often they're exactly like mine. They're so similar. So when I see one person out of the many in the room that has solved it to a satisfactory point, like they really feel pride or at least satisfaction in the way they chose to solve that problem, whether it's harnessing data, whether it's security, whatever. When I hear that, I come back back to the office with a real sense of something to explore, a real sense of I guess to some extent joy or relief that someone has found a way to solve this problem. But they say misery loves company. I feel like when I go to the conferences, I look for the validation, not the misery, but I look for company. And an event like this, where you have so many amazing attendees, so many great brands, you can't. There's no way to avoid these great conversations and this great insight. I'm excited about the emergence of all of these conferences that have emerged in the last few years. There's so many events around the world, and what's happening is it's getting so noisy that only the really good ones stand out, and the really good ones have gotten really good. So I'm excited about the folks I'm going to see and the presentations I'm going to hear, and the things I'm going to learn, and the things that are just going to be validated for me, for what that's worth. See a few more minutes. Any other thoughts? I talked about the importance of focusing on a product. Somewhere in one of the points I reiterated that just because there's lots of platforms out there doesn't mean you have to be on all of them. I guess I also want to emphasize talent. Here's something I've learned, and again, this is an example. I joke that like my father or grandfather wouldn't have understood. What I'm seeing more and more of in large companies today is the expansion of headcount and more people doing less things for more of their time. Meaning, if you have an email department, you'll start hiring more and more specialists and coordinators and entry-level folks to just really own segments and just get all that work done. And there are lots of folks who just like to grow their empire and just have larger teams. I don't know, they feel pride in that, or at least feel support. My perspective is, I feel like less strong people always gives me better results than more bodies. More bodies creates more scrutiny, more opportunity for errors, more opportunity for frustration, for expectations, etc. Recent scenario was probably the best version I can give of what I'm saying here. We had an open position, and unlike most instances, this position actually offered a number of good candidates. We don't always get so many good candidates. It's just tough. It's it's an interesting industry we're in. It's an interesting town we're in Las Vegas, but we just get often so many applicants that it's hard to find the really, really strong ones. But in this particular role recently, we just had a whole bunch of really strong ones really early on. And we had a few roles open that were very unrelated to the one we had that we were trying to fill in the moment. But the direction I gave based on some, I guess, confusion that the hiring manager had was, I have a couple of really, really talented folks. I have one role, and neither of them fit exactly into the role, the two strongest people, neither of them fit exactly into the role, but they're both really strong. My perspective was, look, you got this role and you got that role over here. It has nothing to do with the other. Does any one of those two have the ability to solve the problem that's required in this one over here? And the answer was a loose yes. My perspective was really, look, just get the talent in here and we'll figure out how to get things done. And I feel like a lot of mature, smart companies are thinking that way today. Get the talent in there, and then you figure out a way to get things done. You don't necessarily need the expert to have a ton of experience doing that particular job, but if they have a ton of experience doing a job that takes the same kind of dedication and creativity, folks can learn how to do new things. Just find the talent. Not so much the experience with the tool or the platform, but with the creativity, open mind, the dedication, the clear passion. Passion's a big one. All right, on that note, I'm not seeing any more questions. And wrapping up on time here. Let's see what we have. Got 11:52. Hey, here's one more. What was it that drove your passion for tech, and what drives and push tech boundaries in digital marketing? It's funny. I've always been a tech guy. I just, gadgets have always been interesting to me. I just find them fun. But more so than tech, I've always just been an artist, an artsy kind of guy. I always loved comic books and superheroes and movies and media and sci-fi. And I guess that's where things start to bleed. I guess sci-fi is a good point. All that creativity and animation and cartoons that I love, and then technology, they do kind of bleed together. So as companies, more and more the last 2 decades, I'd say, really started to leverage technology more in marketing, meaning marketing was less about just sales, distribution, and advertising, maybe in the other order, but you know what I mean. I feel like companies started really leveraging marketing tools. I saw this opportunity of what kind of job I can have, because I was concerned I wouldn't be, or really my family was more concerned than I was, that I would just be a starving artist as they were used to in the 70s and 80s. Today, I think art has reinvented itself, and you can be wealthy doing it, not just the rare few, but actually many. But my point is, my passion for creativity and technology helped me to find interest in working for companies that I normally might not have found interest in working in, mostly from the agency side. Worked with a lot of B2B companies, whether they be financial or even food, fast food in some cases, or in some cases big furniture companies. I would normally not be very interested in working with that company to do anything. But being able to leverage the creativity, art side of my mind, and what was happening in digital, the enablement to take that creativity and actually make it meaningful and drive conversion, drive sales and sign-ups, etc. Had just really gotten me excited, and that's really what's driven my passion to this point. Finding a way to leverage my creative ideas and amplify them and optimize them by channel has really been fueled by technology. So, that's my answer. Is technology has helped me push my creativity beyond the boundaries. If we were working in a time where there wasn't nearly as much flexibility and advancement in technology. So what's going to be new in Kitex? What's going to be new? I'm going to be new. I haven't been there before. I'm excited about that. And there's a few other guests, a few other folks that are going to be new. There are definitely some folks on the stream here that can talk more to the specifics than I can. But I promise you that some of us new blood, we're going to bring a whole lot of excitement, creativity, fun, and perspective that you hadn't seen in the past. Got a big thumbs up and a thank you. I appreciate that. I do. I appreciate it. Thank you all. I appreciate all your effort and time and patience with me. I hope you've gotten a bit out of my my rants here. I think my email address is there. If not, just find me on LinkedIn, Greg Cannon, and invite me to join, or find me on Twitter at GCAN, GCANN, and ask me questions. I'm happy to be a resource for you. I'm happy to help. Yeah, thank you all. So on that note, I think it's a good point to wrap up. I'll give everyone a good 5 minutes back to their day, and thank you so much for this opportunity. Really appreciate your time, and really appreciate your questions. Have a great week.